Comes in and out.
Are
I'll
we
try to
right
yell.
here,
I
or
think,
do we
yeah,
go
you
over?
guys are there, and I think the microphone's there, Word, but this
We
one keeps
don't
coming
need
in and
that.
out.
I'm not sure
We're
that
not
maybe
loud enough.
Yeah, luckily the space isn't that huge. Everyone can hear.
And our voices.
Are you going over here?
Yeah.
All right. Well, here, you take that, and I'll take this.
I'm really honest to God pretty serious about not needing a microphone. But we'll use it. As long as
Sometimes it gets really loud.
So this is the Austin Powers Nightmare
on it.
yes, that one. So
Take two.
yes. Yeah, the Grinch Who Stole Christmas. Got a reunion there because they were both in that, and also questions about Austin Powers and things like that. But also, yeah, you know, whatever you guys want to come up with or questions, and whatever you guys feel like talking about.
I had just temporarily forgotten about that, but
I forgot about Austin Powers.
yeah.
I almost forgot what to do, as you guys just saw.
So I thought about this, this
Mindy and I worked with a guy. He's known in the business as an evil genius on the Grinch. Mindy and I both got hired by Ron to work.
I'm
on
sorry,
the Grinch.
who?
I don't know. Yeah, Ron. Howard.
And can I just say one thing, because I had met him, and I remember having sort of like this audition, but it wasn't really an audition, because he wanted to find the Who's, and I remember just like being across from him and thinking, oh my God, this is like the most amazing thing. I don't care if you get me or not. And so he was, you know, he thought it was funny, I guess. But one of the nicest, most amazing people in the business of show, your brother.
Yeah.
And you know that.
Well, I say this a lot, and this is not. Ron's never done a horror movie, by the way, but
Not yet.
but Ron is he's a great filmmaker. If you know, the body of work that my brother has done, from The Grinch and these light comedies, Parenthood, to serious dramas. He's a great filmmaker. He's a better Big Brother than he is a filmmaker. So truly a great Big Brother. And sometimes he gives me a little too much unsolicited advice. But at least he says that. He actually will say, now Clint, I'm going to give you some unsolicited advice. Anyway.
But I also heard too that like a lot of your family was in the Grinch Who Stole Christmas.
Not mine.
Your dad and
Yeah, my dad, Rance Howard, was in The Grinch. Now my mom had gotten ill, and the movie is dedicated to my mom, but she had passed away between the editing process and when the movie came out. Mom finally passed away, but and my mom loved Christmas, so she was thrilled that Ron was getting to make this movie called The Grinch. And Bryce was in it. I think Jocelyn was in it. Some of Ron's, what do you call, Cheryl's sister? Sister-in-law was in it. So anyway, yeah, Ron always tries to make things a family affair when it fits.
do you believe it was 24 years ago today that came out?
That's a long time ago.
How long was your makeup, Mindy?
I tell him it was about 3 hours,
Yeah.
right? The little nose thingamajiggy, yes.
And the hair,
yeah.
and the fat suits. People got really, they crafted on the Grinch. It was literally head to toe, every detail, and we had these suits that changed the shape of our bodies. And first we started makeup, and Mindy can, certainly.
Well, first of all, it was this huge like place where everybody got their own makeup person. So, right? Everybody, we all had, there were so many people there. And, so it was makeup first, then I think hair, and then wardrobe, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then they would come back and finish you with the makeup. And then, of course, you had a person following you around all day doing this. And that's fun for about 5 minutes. But when you have a person all day doing this, and of course they're perfectionists, they're makeup people. They want their work to be absolutely beautiful. but you're touching my face. Got a little disconcerting. But, okay, we do have a lot to talk about. But what Jim Carrey did on The Grinch was so amazing to me. The fact that every day, we were in the chair for 3 hours. He was like 4.5 hours in a makeup chair and wardrobe, and to get that green suit on, they put the rubber on his face, they paint that rubber, they put him in a green wetsuit, they pop contact lenses in his eyes, they put false teeth in his mouth, and then they tell him to go out and be funny. The last thing you want to be when you've got that much hindering you is humorous. At least for me it was. Me and Jeffrey Tambor, he played the mayor in The Grinch. We would have to have attitude adjustments all day long. And we would end up looking at each other and giving ourselves one of these. Well, it's like children's theater. But it was great. What Jim did, and you go back and watch that movie, and talk about a brilliant man who invented all of that stuff. You think it's spontaneous? You think that what Jim does is some sort of improv? Well, he improvs it, but then he refines it. And all those hand movements, you would see him sitting in his chair, practicing all these hand movements that he would be doing. And as it turns out, his eyes were out in front of him and turning back. I mean, he had a great idea of what he was doing. So my hat's off to Jim.
Yeah, he has said before that he is happy that he made it, but it was like the worst experience. Like he was allergic to like a lot of the makeup, and it was real like yak hair, I guess, that they used in the costume. I was told. I don't know.
I don't know, but I do remember like thinking, oh my God, he's gonna be so much fun to play with, and then he wasn't. And I knew after a while you go, oh, here is someone that has got so much riding on it. He's got so much more makeup and plastic things and things that aren't real. He didn't have time, and he's very concentrated. He knows exactly what he wants to do, when to do it. So when we would take a moment, it'd be like, all right, and right before you're doing something, you watch. I found like, oh, I could watch him, and no wonder he's got a lot going on. So it's not the time for me to go up to him and go, hey, you want a drink? And but he was amazing, amazing.
Time-tested performance.
Mm-hmm.
So Clint, you have a history of doing a bunch of horror movies. How do you like horror compared to like more drama or more serious roles? Especially, let's see, well, maybe not House of the Dead. Maybe that's not one that you...
I had a blast working on House of the Dead. It's obscure, made by this obscure filmmaker, Uwe Boll.
Yes.
But I enjoy the genre. It's honestly not my favorite genre. I'm a One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest guy. I'm not House of the Living Dead or Roadhouse Massacre or whatever you would call them. But doing a horror film is fun because you get to play with a lot of soupy stuff. When they hand you a sword and the prop man has a bucket of blood standing by, you know it's going to be a good day in the corner. I've gotten to do a lot of fun things, like levitate around and pretend I'm cutting people's heads off. It is fun. It's living vicariously. Listen, when I was a kid, playing Army was the thing. Me and my buddies would dress up in Army clothes and we'd play Army. Well, making a movie, especially a horror movie, is just like that. I mean, you got better props to play with. And the one thing about it, and horror movies are usually very low budget. It's very rarely that you walk into a horror movie that's really well funded. And when the bullets start flying when you're making a movie and you've got 8 pages to do and you've only got about 6 hours to do them, And everybody knows when you've been in the business a while, you just know, man, this has got a lot, we got a lot to do, you know. And the one thing about a horror movie is you don't have to be funny. Especially for a character like me. I mean, I play these characters that are maniacal and psychotic and crazy. And so there's not a lot of nuance, you know, and I'm being more intense, and I can put that game face on, and it's easier to put that game face on when you're really tired or you know, you've had a long day. But that's the one thing about the movie business. Yeah, there are glamorous things about it, but when you're working day in and day out in the business, it ain't a lot of glamour, you know.
It's work. It's work. It's
Yeah.
fun work,
Yeah.
and it's interesting and it's different, and you get to create and you get to do all of these things like make believe. But I do. Some people think, oh my God, I want to do that. It's really rough. It's really rough for so many things, for so many reasons. You didn't get it. You almost got it. You know, it didn't work out. So there's all this other stuff that doesn't come that easy for a lot of people.
Well, and it's so rare. You guys have both long longevity in the field. Like even the Goldbergs, that just ended just like not that long ago.
The last year.
Yeah. So I mean, all up until that, and Clint, you, General Ben. How old were you when you?
Oh, that's right.
I started acting when I was 2 years old.
Yeah.
I'm 65 now.
Yes. So,
And so, I mean,
A
listen.
baby.
Yeah, I don't remember.
No, I mean you were. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're maybe now.
I don't have memories. I don't have memories of my early acting days, but I do know I was doing it for a long time, and I'll tell you, when the phone doesn't ring, speaking as an adult, you know, when the phone doesn't ring, or when you go on an audition, and you think you do really well. You think you've entertained the people. You think you've connected with the producers and the director, and then 2 days later you call your agent and they say, "Oh, Clint, they loved you, but they went a different direction." That means you lost.
Well, I mean, you know, little.
When the audition process is you go into a room, and I've been facing this all of my life. You go into a room and there's like, say there's 12 people there auditioning. There's only going to be one part. And you look around and you go, okay, there's going to be one person that survives this. You know. Now, of course, you learn to survive because you don't get the job and you realize life goes on. But it's one of those things about the business, you know, that and collecting unemployment. Oh yeah, for a long time, I worked and collected unemployment. You know, because 6 months, if you don't get a paycheck in 6 months, what do? You collect unemployment.
I taught improv.
Mindy, what was it like working with Mike Myers? Like being part of the Austin Powers? I mean, that's such a huge franchise.
I had met Mike. I'm from the Groundlings, if you're familiar with the Groundlings over in LA, and doing improv. And Julie Sweeney, who was on SNL and was a Groundling, brought him to one of our shows. And I met him through that, and I got to do improv through that. And he thought that I was so funny and amazing because I knew nothing. And in improv, you know what I mean? I mean, if somebody gives me some information about football, I just wouldn't know what to say. So I get to make it up. And he just thought, oh my God, that's brilliant. And so he was going to, I think he was working on the first film. And then he wanted to try a character, which was Austin Powers. He wanted to try that in a show at the Groundlings. So the Groundlings gave him that permission, and he used me and I think 2 or 3 other people. And I really don't remember a lot about it. I don't remember if I did like a Frau. I probably didn't. But I think he just liked the idea that I was easy to work with, that I was funny, that I was, my instincts worked, and da-da-da. And then when it came up to be that he was going to audition people, I got the audition, and all I kept thinking about was, oh my God, I don't know how to do a German accent, and my Russian and German are the same thing.
Oh, so you have the general character, you were auditioning for that character.
Yes, so
and
it was foul.
And you didn't know how to do it?
No, well, I'm like, I don't know. Oh, I don't know. What if I I start doing something like this, and then all of a sudden I talked Jewish. And so I was like so nervous. And Jay Roach, who was the director, he had also seen my work, so they knew kind of what I could do. So when I went in, it was about like, this was the table, and Jay was here and I was here, so that's how close I was to him. And he had me do the first scene where I was talking about the cereal. The Lucky Charms, the Lucky Charms. And he had me do that. He had me do that, and then he goes, great. He goes, okay, just don't worry about the script. Just have fun. And I was like, oh, all right. So I'll do that, And then I started, doing that and playing with that. He loved it, loved it, loved it. And I left, and I thought, which I do a lot of, I suck. I'm not gonna get it. I'm a fucking idiot. And I felt so bad. And that usually it takes maybe a couple of weeks or a couple of days, and all you can think about was, I was horrible. And that's how I live my everyday life. And then I got this call, and I was like, and I had not done a lot of big things. I didn't have my success yet. And so when they called and they said, yeah, we want you to do Frau, I was like, oh my God. And then to find out who the other people that I'm working with, not only is it Mike, but with Robert Wagner and Seth Green and all these other people, was beyond. I mean, it was like I've been given the golden ticket. And he gave me the opportunity to do what I do best. And I never didn't do a lot of improv for him in the film, because I thought, I'm not here to change your ideas or to change your script. I will enhance it maybe, but so I got to do little things like yeah. For some reason, I scream really well. I don't know why. I'll do it for you right now. Stop it! And people say, how did you do that? I go, I just scream. That's what I do. What happens when I scream? I don't know. I didn't think about it. And he was a doll. He was lovely. All he wanted was, he wanted it to be funny. So I'm sure if you had something and you came up, or you brought something to him, he would say, don't do that, or oh, that's great, do more of that. So I owe Mike everything. He really, really, really gave me an opportunity to get into what I have been doing all my life, and now to have a little bit of success, and it has been the biggest thrill of my life. Yay me! Yeah. Thank you.
All right, I don't want to monopolize this. Do you guys have any questions? You, sir.
I know, Clint, you were talking about how you didn't play a lot of maniacal characters and there's not a lot of humor in it, but I personally thought that your role in Ice Cream Man was darkly humorous. And I was wondering how much of that was you or how much of it was scripted. And I also have a question for both of you. I'm a big Taylor Momsen fan. Do you guys have any stories with her?
Yeah.
Look at her now.
Wow. Wow. I probably misstated it a little bit. First of all, I recognized from a very early age that God gave me a sense of humor, and God gave me a knack for sort of entertaining just with the way I am. And I got my mom's gift of gab. I got on my dad's side of the family, their sense of humor. And then me growing up, being free to express myself. I have never been afraid to tell you what I think, and in kind of an interesting, entertaining way. So I realize I bring that to any character I play. I personally, as an actor, and this is gonna sound funny, and I don't, okay, I'll just say it. You know, a lot of people will say they get into the skin of the actor, of the character, they become the character. No, I allow the character to become me. Because I feel like that I'm pretty entertaining. And I sort of reverse that. I make Clint Howard the ice cream man. I take Clint Howard, I don't become Gregory Tudor. I look at the character and I go, well, I'm gonna fit Clint Howard in there. Because I know Clint entertains. Listen, I've given, for 63 years, I've given people my social security number and they've given me a check for my gainful employment. and you know, listen, I love to be creative. And it feels good, you know, especially with humor. It feels good when you can make people laugh or do something where your director responds to you. But you know what? It's a business. I get paid to entertain people. And so I get paid so I can collect my money and take it home and enjoy life with my family. You know, and over the course of the years, with doing all these horror conventions and the pop conventions and stuff, I now have recognized what an effect like that Mindy and I have had on people. And speaking for myself, it's got to blow people away. The people that are about my age, you guys have grown up watching me grow up. When you were 10 years old, you were watching me when I was 10 or 12 years old, whatever the situation is, and now we're collecting friggin' Social Security together.
As a child, watching that, I don't know.
Yeah, no. And Taylor Momsen, listen, we were all taken by Taylor. And I know my brother was, he hired her, you know. And they immediately recognized that they didn't want to spend the time for her to be in makeup. The idea originally, I remember, was we got to give Cindy Lou Who a who knows. No, we have to invent the line where it says she hasn't grown into her who knows yet.
And she did have this cute little nose.
Yeah.
She didn't want to change that. You know, she really was who she was.
Yes,
With
but
a very boo face,
Yeah.
yeah, but the practical nature of it all is, you know, in the state of California and anywhere here, there are child labor laws that allow a child to only be working for so many hours a day. She was probably only 8 hours a day at the time when she was at her age. So you don't spend 3 hours or 2 hours in a makeup chair. If you're running a business, you've got to figure out how to get her in and out of makeup and hair and wardrobe in about an hour. Because the rest of the time she has to be there working. It's, you know, it's a business. But we were taken by her.
She was so good.
Yeah.
I mean, in the scene, she was so, you know, I mean,
Honest.
she was just who she was, and she just, I was fixated, you know, just watching her sometimes because she didn't have any fear, she didn't have any questions, and when she was given a direction, she got it. Yeah, she was incredible.
Standing toe to toe with Jim Carrey as a little kid, that would be intimidating. And those scenes in the Grinch's lair, where Jim and her, I mean, I wasn't around for any of that. You weren't either. It was all just Jim and Ron and the team and Taylor. And Max, the dog was great. They nailed it.
Yeah.
And listen, you know, I know it was, in a way, it is children's theater, but it was brilliant children's theater. Then now, of course, was it 24 years later?
Yes.
24 years later.
Are we gonna have a party?
We queue it up. We queue up the Grinch every year. Our family always watches the Grinch.
You have to.
Yeah.
Thank you both for your entertainment.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That movie sounds good to watch right now.
Bless you.
I have not watched a movie in a long time. Now that I think about it.
I will live in regret if I don't ask you again, Mindy, about how Drop Dead Gorgeous came to you and what that experience was like, because I just love that movie so much.
Oh yeah.
Have you seen Drop Dead Gorgeous? I know some people have not. Oh my Lord.
Oh,
Definitely.
definitely go see it.
Okay. Anyway, it was done in Missouri, right?
Minnesota?
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
So I got to do, you know, their Canada. Oh, it was so good. So good. And it was about a pageant. and Chrissy Alley was one of the stars, and all these amazing actors and actresses were then also there that weren't anyone until we did the film. Amy Adams, you know Amy? Okay, oh my God, they're brilliant. And so Ellen Barkin and
Chrissy Alley.
yeah, Chrissy Alley and
Allison Janney.
yes, Allison Janney. I mean, these people were not as big as they are now. So I was like, oh, okay, like my people. And I had the best time. Going to, you know, Minnesota and talking like that. And you talk to, and they got like people that were just, you know, maybe actors that, you know, local people. And I remember talking to someone and I go, can you talk to me because I want to hear your accent. She goes, oh, I don't have an accent. And like, all right, here you go. That's one of my favorite things, so if you haven't seen it, I really encourage you to, because
Brittany Murphy was up.
Brittany Murphy was I loved her. I would like mothered her. She was wonderful. It really, there's so many wonderful things to it, you guys, and it's so insane, but it's also based on like that kind of pageant and what happens and what they do. There's incredible people, so thank you for bringing that up, because it is one of my favorites.
Yeah, if you've ever seen like Best in Show or Waiting for Guffman, a lot of people love those. It's in the very same vein. Very same vein. So, any other questions?
I don't know, this sounds kind of silly, but do either one of you have like, it's not really favorite actor, but like maybe, you know, favorite actors or anyone that you've worked with? I mean, because, you know, there's so many years, it's kind of hard. That's a silly question. I'm sure you've worked with a lot of people, but I don't know if the's any, like, you know.
Who can remember?
People kind of, you know, people that kind of stick out, you know. I mean,
Are there any people like you're friends with right now in the industry that you've kind of maintained a good friendship with? I think.
Favorite actor, for example.
That have become successful? Is that what you're asking?
No, just that
no.
in the industry, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I
just
suppose,
that,
yeah, that it becomes successful, or just that other actresses that you really liked hanging out with, or good friends with.
Hung out and become friends with. That's a different conversation, because you know, I've connected with some people that aren't very good. But as far as being on the set with somebody and really admiring the way they friggin' do their business, the way their professionalism and just the connection. I've got one bar none. I got a chance to work for a day on a movie side by side with Robert De Niro.
Yeah.
And Bob De Niro was absolutely magic. And real quickly about that, it was on Backtrack. And I was young. I probably hadn't turned 30 yet. Maybe I was just 30. And he was already very successful. And my brother Ron directed the movie, and he asked me to do this part, and yeah, I auditioned, and they liked me, so I'm gonna do this part with Robert De Niro, and I'm really nervous because he was in Godfather Part 2, and he was in Raging Bull, and he was in all these brilliant movies. And my brother gave me a scouting report and says, listen, first of all, he does a lot of research, so you need to really be up on things. He investigates everything. And also another thing you gotta know about Bob is that he starts out real slow. We're gonna do a lot of takes. And sure enough, we got to the set, we did a couple of rehearsals, and we started doing takes. And he was a little slow to get started. But after 3 or 4 takes, take 2, take 3, take 4, it started to get good. And then it kept getting really good. And it was like almost orgasmic how friggin' the connection that he was making to the material, fresh with every take. And it was, it was a special day for me. I worked with a lot of good actors, but let me just real quickly tell on myself. It's a story where Clint puts his foot in his mouth in a big way.
Oh, okay, let's hear it.
Here I am, working with Robert De Niro, and it was percolating really good. It was 11 o'clock in the morning, and we had done a bunch of takes, and I knew the day was going really good, and I was excited. I was scoring on this day. Now, if you guys know what craft service is, craft service is the food that gets prepared in between the lunch and the dinner and all that stuff. And on a big movie, the craft service person lays out a really nice spread, but then they come to the set and they offer food to the crew. So the crew doesn't have to always go to craft service. Craft service comes to the crew. So we're in between takes, and this lady comes walking around with a tray of broccoli pizza.
What?
Yeah, and I'm feeling really good about myself, and I'm standing next to my brother. And this woman comes by and says, "Would you like some broccoli pizza?" And I go, "No, no." And I look to my brother and I go, "Who the fuck would want broccoli pizza?" And my brother looks at me and he goes, "That's Bob's favorite." And I turn around and I swear to God, Bob is no further than for me here. And I know damn certain he heard me go, "Who the fuck would eat broccoli pizza?" So,
I love that.
from the friggin' headlines and Euphoria to the bread lines and the toilet bowl, in one shitty comment.
Oh my God, that's great. That's a great story.
You must have the best reaction then. You must know what you said.
You know what? You know what? Bob's never hired me again. Bob's had a chance to participate in probably 3 or 4 dozen major movies. And have I gotten a call to even audition? I've learned to like broccoli pizza.
If it was me, I would think the same too. If it was me, like I'll be looking all like, "Who?" Yeah. Mine's older or something like that.
Well, I dropped the F-bomb next to a guy, and I swear to God, I could see out of the corner of his eye that he had heard me, and he didn't want to say anything bad, but it was my brother. My brother leaned into me and goes, "That's Bob's favorite pizza." What a schmo I am.
I never make those mistakes.
But I got to, growing up, one of my favorite movies is Rock and Roll High School. I love the Ramones. Great movie. And you had an amazing role in that. I was wondering if you just talk a little bit about that. That was such a great movie.
Well, Alan Arkish, the director, was a Roger Corman guy, and Rock and Roll High School was a Roger Corman movie. And Alan Arkish was my brother directed a movie for Roger Corman called Grand Theft Auto. And Alan Arkish was Ron's second unit director. So after Grand Theft Auto got made, Roger had decided that he was going to let Alan make this movie called Rock and Roll High School. First, Alan submitted the script to Roger called Disco High. Originally, Rock and Roll High School was going to be called Disco High. And that's how it got greenlit, because Saturday Night Fever had just come out. And Roger Corman, anytime that Roger Corman could ride the wave of something, he jumped on board. He made a movie called Carnosaur that I was in, and it was after Jurassic Park had come out. And Roger decided to do a low-budget version of Jurassic Park called Carnosaur. But anyway, Rock and Roll High School, Alan called me and said there's this wheeler dealer in school that he's got his office set up in the bathroom, and he sells things to various characters, and there's a good part for Eagle Bauer, and I'd love to have you play it. And of course, at that point in my life, I was 20 or 21 years old. I said, sure, I'd love to. I'd love to get an adult job. But the thing about Rock and Roll High School, the material was pretty funny, and of course I was going to play the part. It wasn't until I went to the wardrobe session, and the wardrobe lady had picked out some clothes for me to wear, and all of a sudden I looked at those clothes and I put them on, and she put some chains around my neck, and I became Eagle Bauer. And it wasn't until I had the costume on that I really realized that the one-handed approach to strap unfastening is a basic skill that must be mastered. Now watch closely as I demonstrate. It all fit together. And it wasn't until Clint got into the skin of Eagle Bauer.
That was so great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you guys. I wanted to ask more about boards, because that's such a great show.
It was really, really fun. I really loved doing it. I did it for 5 years. I was a recurring, and I'm sad it's gone. time. Bye.
Good hour, Mindy Sterling, everybody. Yeah, let's have more time.
Oh, thank you guys.